Hi guys, so welcome to your presentation on scale fluctuations and why they exist and what we can do about them and literally what do they mean. There is nothing worse, I guess, from your point of view than knowing you've had a pretty decent week, you've ticked all the boxes, then it comes to the weekend or whenever you get weird, you stand on the scales and for whatever reason, it shows you've either stayed the same, you've not lost as much as you would have liked to, or even worse, you've gained weight. And I know that from speaking to a lot of the clients I've worked with over the years, this can make you completely lose your mind. And for a lot of people, it completely throws them off track. So the idea of this is to just help you, or at least try and help you understand what scale fluctuations mean, why they happen, and what, if anything, you can do about it. So let me see if we can get this working. Go. So the scales. Now the first thing with the scales is it only measures your weight. And I know you might be sitting there and think, well, my weight is the thing that's important to me. That's what I want to bring down. And yes, you're right. But what we really mean is we want to bring your fat down. So when you step on the scales, the number that you're seeing is made up of a few things. Yes, importantly to what we're trying to do, it's made up of your body fat, but it's also made up of muscle, bone, any food you've got in your system, any liquids you've got in your system, and any water retention you've got, whether that's through drinking fluids or intramuscular as well. So intercellular water. And that last one, the water, is probably the most important one. That's the one that has the very most influence on what you see when you step on the scales, which we're going to come on to. So there's a few things to consider when you get weird matters. Now, in an ideal scenario, and this won't be true for every week because at times you're going to have to do things a little bit differently, but you want to try and get weird under the same circumstances every week. If you do that, then we know you've got the best chance of the results being as accurate as possible. So do it on a morning, first thing on a morning, when you've woke up, when you've slept, after you've been to the toilet and before you've had anything to drink or anything to eat, and if you can, without any clothes on, because that's going to give you the most accurate reading. Okay, so try and keep it about the same time as well. There will be a big difference when you get weird if you get weird at 5 o'clock in the morning, midweek, because you're going to work, you're up early, compared to a weekend, if you have a lie in, you get weird at 10 o'clock. There will be a difference in what you weigh because some of your food will have digested if you get weird later. A lot of different variables to consider, which is why the scales are a good indicator, but they're not the be all and end all. Make sure you do it after the toilet and before food. So, I'm going to see if I can just get rid of that. I wonder if that moves. Might not. It does. Great. So, things that influence your weight that have no bearing at all on fat loss. So, when we have check-ins with clients and they've had a really good week, honestly, it blows their mind when things don't, or when things aren't reflected on the scales. But there is so much to consider. I'll move that as well. So much to consider when you're looking at the scales. Like I said, it's not just telling you whether you've lost fat. It's not just telling you whether you made progress. So every day you will step on the scales and your weight will be different. Now, you in your head, what you would imagine is if you're on a diet, if you're in a deficit, you get weird and every day your weight just goes down by a little bit and a little bit. And in an ideal world, that's exactly how it would work. But it doesn't, because that is not how your body works. So on a daily basis, you will have these weight fluctuations where you go down a little bit, you stay the same, you go up a little bit, you stay the same, you go down, you go up, you go down, and that is completely normal. And I guess that's one of the biggest drawbacks of just getting weird once a week, is that sometimes you'll get weird and it will be on a day where you're just heavier for whatever reason. So you'll have these daily fluctuations, so that's important to remember. When you weight will make a difference on the scale. So if you, for instance, if as a general rule, your last thing you eat is at 8 o'clock at night, then for whatever reason one day you have something to eat at 10 o'clock at night, that won't dictate whether you've gained fat or lost fat. It won't magically cause fat gain because that's all about calories. But if you've ate later at night, some of that food will still be in your system. So the next day you might weigh a little bit heavier. What you eat matters as well. So if for whatever reason, let's say you get weird on a Saturday night, but the night before, even if it's within your calories, you've had a meal that is a little bit saltier, has more carbs in, you will weigh more on the scales the next day. And it's not because those things are bad for you. It's not because they make you gain fat. It's because they will hold on to water. So if you have a meal that's more salty, you might hold on to more water. If you have a meal that's higher in carbohydrates compared to what you normally eat, you'll hold on to more water. So for every gram of carbohydrates that your body stores as energy, and we call that glycogen, you'll hold on to about 3 to 4 grams of water. So if you imagine you have an extra 100 grams of carbs one day, even if it's within your calories, you'll then hold on to an extra 3 to 400 grams of water. So the chances are you will weigh a little bit heavier the next day. If you're female, your menstrual cycle will make your weight fluctuate. So women are very complex and every woman's different and no two women are really the same. But there'll be women who don't really suffer any symptoms from their menstrual cycle and they'll be over here. And then there'll be women who suffer really badly and they, in terms of weight, they might gain 7 pounds when they're on their period or just before. Most women are somewhere in the middle. And for you, it might be 2 pounds, 3 pounds, 1 pound that you normally gain. So again, that bears a weight on what you see on the scales. DOMS, if you are sore because you've trained hard and your legs are aching, you're going to be inflamed, your muscles are going to be repairing, and you're going to be holding on to more water retention. So that's going to make you weigh heavier. If you're highly stressed, you're going to hold on to some water. That's going to make you heavier. If you are ill, run down, and your body's trying to fight that inflammation, you're going to be heavier because you're holding on to more water. If you're injured, same thing. Your body's inflamed, you're holding on to more water. Toilet habits. If you aren't going to the toilet as regularly, the chances are you're going to weigh more because that's still going to be in your system. And then finally, hydration. If you're overhydrated, if you've been drinking more, if you've been drinking less, these things all affect your weight on the scale. So what? We've gone through maybe 10 things there that will make you weigh more on the scales, but don't mean you haven't lost fat. You could have lost you could have lost fat that week doing everything right, but still have gained weight on the scales. And it is always down to water retention from any one of those reasons, and probably a few more that I've missed off, because weight loss isn't linear. Right. Oops. So what can you do about it? Well, the first thing I always suggest is when you're getting weird is use logic. You get up, you get weird, you step on the scales and you see something that you're not happy with. You've had an amazing week, you've smashed your steps, your diet has been perfect. You get on the scales and you either weigh the same or you weigh more and you're disheartened. Now, for a lot of people, they throw the towel in. They think, sod it, might as well eat what I want. And that's what they do. But realistically, what we have to do is think logically rather than emotionally. Now, I know that's difficult because human beings are emotional creatures. That's why we struggle with food at times. But what you have to do is you get on the scales and you do a bit of fault finding. You go, right, have I stuck to everything? Have I got my steps in, within reason, they're not a million miles off? Have I got to the gym a reasonable amount of times? Most importantly, have I stuck to my nutrition? If you've ticked all of those boxes, then realistically and physiologically, you will have lost fat. If either myself or Nina have set you some targets and you're on a fat loss goal and you've stuck to it, you will have lost fat. So we know it must be water retention. So, is there anything else that can be influencing your weight on the scales? That's how you've got to start thinking it. And this is where you revert back to the last slide. Any of those things that you saw from the gym, menstrual cycle, ate later, constipated, ran down, all of those things. And if that's the case, if there's one of those, then we know that's probably what it is. And sometimes you just weigh heavier. Ways to get around it, two ways that work well. One is get weighed every day. Now, I know for some people that just blows their mind because they don't think they'd cope with it, getting weighed every day. But realistically, getting weighed every day is much healthier because what it teaches you is that your weight fluctuates every day. And that helps kind of normalize it as well. And that's the problem with getting weighed once a week. You can get weighed and it's just a heavy day. You just weigh more that day. And whereas the day before or the day after, if you'd got weighed then, you might be a hell of a lot lighter. It's just fluke. So if you get weighed every day, add those 7 days up and create a 7-day average. Now that removes all fluctuations. And what you'll get over time is more or less that linear weight loss that you're looking for. The other thing to do is just report your lowest weight of the week. So again, rather than taking a weekly average, what you can do is get weighed every day, but whatever your lowest weight of that week is, let's say you get weighed and on Wednesday you're 10 stone 7, that's your lowest weight you've seen, you report that one. Then next week, whatever your lowest weight is, you report that one. Because what that means is that will be the day where you've got the least food in your system, where you're not holding on to any water, X, Y, and Z, and that's probably the most accurate reading. Above all, just don't panic, stay consistent. You know, there will be loads of times when you get on the scales and you see a gain, even though you've done everything right. And as long as you know that you've ticked those boxes, then just keep going, persevere. Nothing good happens from deciding to think, sod it, effort, and just throw yourself off track for the rest of the weekend. Always stay consistent and just don't panic. Be patient. The amount of times I've dieted, and to be fair, it's easier for men. Our weight loss is a little bit more linear than women's. But the amount of times I've dieted and my weight stayed the same for a couple of weeks, but I've physically lost fat. You can see it in the photos I've got. You know, it's happened dozens of times. You've got to just try and stay logical, and not panic, and just stay consistent. Okay, if you're ticking the boxes, you will be losing fat. So, some final thoughts. We're trying to keep these quite short here and digestible. Remember, the scales don't necessarily just show fat loss. They'll show mainly what's happening with the water in your body. That is the flaw in the scales. That is the problem with them. So remember that. What we do want to see, though, is on a kind of monthly basis that your weight's going down. If it's like week by week by week, you're just staying the same, we know there is something wrong. Now, where the scales are important is if you've got more weight to lose. Let's say you're someone with 5 stone to lose. The scales are very important. You'll still have those fluctuations, but week by week, month by month, we do want to see that number come down because it's very relevant here. If you're leaner, if you're someone who's just trying to lose that last few pounds, you know, you're already really active in the gym, you've got a lean kind of physical, athletic looking body, the scales are probably going to be a lot less important. Now, they still will paint the same picture, but they're going to be a lot less important. You might see more changes in your photos than you do on the scales, and that's completely normal. Again, always use logic over emotion, and that's difficult to do, and that's a skill in itself to learn, but that's why me and Nina are there to help you. We can help you overcome those, so reach out if you start panicking. Main thing is, if you've done everything right, it's impossible to gain fat in a calorie deficit. There's 3,500 calories in 1 pound of fat. If you're trying to lose weight, you're in a deficit. So you'd have to eat at maintenance plus 3,500 calories to gain 1 pound of fat, and you won't have done that. Now, if you haven't done everything right, they're the things that you need to address first, you know. Now, I'm not saying if you've only hit 9,000 steps instead of 10, that's still enough. You know, what I'm saying is if you've sat on your backside all day, you've done 1,000 steps instead of 10, you've only been in the gym once instead of 3 times, you've not really tracked your food, they're the things you need to address. There's no point changing anything until you've addressed those issues. Always focus on the positives, okay? So that's why we ask for photos, that's why we ask for measurements, that's why in your forms we'll ask what you appreciate your body for that's non-aesthetic, what wins have you had, you know, all of these sort of things, so we can think about what's going well on your journey and not just the number you're seeing on the scales. Sometimes if you focus solely on the number of the scales, you will get obsessed and it will become quite disheartening. But if you focus on actually enjoying the journey, enjoying the process, enjoying getting outside, doing some steps, enjoying going to the gym and feeling strong and feeling fitter, they're the things that will keep you going for longer to help you get those results. And just finally, just remember, weight loss is not linear. What I mean by that is it won't just go down, 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 down. There'll be days it stays the same, days it goes up, and there, for the reasons I've already spoke about, it's always water retention, whether that's through your period, DOMS, stress, illness, eating patterns, whatever, it's always water retention. There'll be weeks where your weight on the scales might not move. It's water retention masking the fact you are losing fat, so just be patient, okay? Right, if you have any questions about fat loss, about scale fluctuations and your weight on the scales, then drop us a comment in the questions, drop us a message in the comments below, or reach out to us. But hopefully for a lot of you, this will just help clear things up a little bit. And remember, use logic, not emotion.